For better or worse, no one can shape the political weather right now more than Joe Rogan. And his recent interview with Douglas Murray was no exception. You might remember we showed you this clip of Murray at the time in conversation with comedian Dave Smith.
Have you been to the crossing points?
No.
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been? I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country even in passing unless I've at least been there.
Okay.
It's a sort of normal, it's a normal thing to do.
When we analysed that intervention, we pointed out, well, at least two problems with Douglas Murray's argument. So one, you can't go to Gaza right now. You can only go to Israel, and then Israeli military might take you into Gaza for a little brief foray, showing you the things they want to show you. Second, Douglas Murray, in fact, talks about all sorts of countries he's never been to. We won't sort of re-litigate all of that, though. Let's look at Joe Rogan, who has since then hit back.
Have you been there?
Right, that's a good point.
You haven't been?
By the way, how is he in all these wars? Can I just go to wars? By the way, how are you allowed to just go to wars? Is that the way
you should at least
can you just
have the
go
courtesy of going there.
Can I just go to wars, or do I have to come back and say what people want me to say about the wars? Can I go to the wars and have my own opinions, or do I have to have the opinions?
Not if you want to go back.
That's right. It's very interesting, this war tourism. How do I get on this war tourism?
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the Ukraine.
Well,
I want to go. I want to go. I want to go to all this war tourism.
Do you have any awards that they can melt down and make bullets out of?
Joe, think about this. Do I seem like a guy that has a lot of awards?
Didn't you get one of those YouTube plaques when you hit 100,000?
I don't even know where they send it. I don't know where they're sending those YouTube plaques.
We've got a few of those.
But I like this idea of war tourism. I like the idea of going to a war and then coming back having a very black and white view.
Yes, I've been there.
I get it, and I know, and interesting. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I love that.
You feel better than the other people.
Well, of course, there's a lot of people. It gets very murky. Most people I know that have been to war have a very murky, complex view of things. But it is good to go to a war and then come back and be as sure as you were before you came.
And you don't have to go for very long.
No, you go for an hour.
Couple hours.
It's a lunch.
Yeah.
It's lunch on the front line.
Put on a flak jacket that says press.
Tea on the front lines, and then you come back and you have all the talking. Yeah.
Joe Rogan does a very good posh English accent. Kieran, was that satisfying to watch?
Yeah, incredibly so. I mean, look, Murray, obviously, I think the phrase is jumped for shark, so he's now a punchline. The fact that it's coming from the right is what's interesting, right? It's obviously key. If we were doing that on this show, whatever, who cares? But the fact it's coming from the right is significant. And I think it's significant because it points to a schism within the right around Israel. So I don't want to overdo it. I'm not saying more of the right is now anti-Israel than it is pro-Israel. But it definitely represents a schism around Israel. And I think especially the kind of so-called libertarian right of Joe Rogan, and I think Dave Smith was the other guy. Sorry if I'm wrong, that they're beginning to, or maybe they have been for a while, but they're beginning to more widely express skepticism towards Israel, educated skepticism towards Israel. And many of them are seeing it, I think, as a kind of extension of their kind of skepticism to the American military-industrial complex. And so I think that schism, that kind of cleavage between the neoconservatism represented by Douglas Murray and their kind of, whatever you want to call it, neolibertarian right-wing views is an interesting one to watch.
Interesting. I mean, I'm tempted to side, well, I mean, obviously on Israel-Palestine, I'm siding with Joe Rogan there over Douglas Murray, who is probably one of the most sort of revolting characters around. Before we get carried away with standing Joe Rogan, though, the New Republic has published a new piece referencing him today. It's by Kate Aronoff. So it has the title, Climate Change Has a Joe Rogan Problem. The subheading, large numbers of people currently get their information from non-traditional media sources. The information they're getting about climate change isn't very good. Kate Aronoff writes, an analysis published this week by Yale Climate Connections found that 8 of the 10 most popular online shows, including those hosted by Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, have spread false or misleading information about climate change. a report from the British news site Tortoise Media analysing the climate-related output of more than 300 influencers likewise shows that climate skeptic posts on YouTube grew by 43% between 2021 and 2024. On X, such content ballooned by 82% over the same time period. As much as 40% of it posits that climate change is merely an excuse for some shadowy network of conspirators to control the population and or bring about communism. I think in a way this is a bit of a sort of a stop clock is right twice a day, because I mean, I'm not an avid listener of Joe Rogan, but my understanding is sort of the people who do really well on them are the people who say that the main narrative you're given is false, and something completely different is going on. And obviously when that's, about Israel and Palestine, you end up kind of at the right conclusion. Like the main narrative you are sold on Israel-Palestine is false. But then they also use the same argument when it comes to climate change, when it comes to COVID, when it comes to vaccines. And I don't actually think that probably Joe Rogan is a particularly good way of forming one's opinions. Even if on this one, they are in a better position than Douglas Murray.